Perfect. Let's get started. I'm happy to be here. My name is Philipp Sandner. I'm sitting here in Germany, in Cologne. I'm into blockchain since 8 years now, starting with Bitcoin, of course. Then since a couple of years, we have founded a so-called blockchain center at the Frankfurt School of Finance. The Frankfurt School of Finance and Management is a small but tiny and very speedy university here in Germany. We have 400 business universities, business faculties here in Germany, and the Frankfurt School belongs to the top 10 over there, and that's why we also have founded the Blockchain Center here, educating young people for the blockchain space and the financial area in the future. That's my personal background. I'm also in the board of directors of venture capital company in Liechtenstein, that's a city over here in Europe, which has the most advanced tokenization legal scheme. And that's basically my primary background. And with this, Tascha, I would like to hand over to you. Maybe you would also like to quickly present yourself, quickly your company, and also providing a little bit of a background such that we as the listeners and the audience are able to basically get the context of who is speaking to us. Happy to be here and happy to have you here, Tascha.
Great, thank you, Dr. Philipp. Very great introduction. I'm Tascha, co-founder and CEO of Alpha Finance Lab. And a very short background about myself. I am very interested in the intersection of finance and tech. Started my career in investment banking, servicing tech companies, jumping on to take role as a product manager, and then now spending a number of years into DeFi, building Alpha Finance Lab out. And more details on Alpha Finance Lab, right? It's a very unique model that we're approaching DeFi as opposed to other DeFi projects. Our view is that we see that DeFi is going to be here for the long term, right? But it's going to be hard to say how it's going to look like for sure, right? There are so many things that will impact DeFi is still in a very young age. So we structure Alpha Finance Lab to be a DeFi lab. What that means is we are always on the lookout for product market fits. So searching for those market gaps in DeFi landscape and making sure that we think outside the box and come up with innovative DeFi products that will not only capture the market gaps, but also allow DeFi to move to the next stage. So we'll keep doing that. And what that means is Alpha will be relevant and be leading DeFi at all stages, from the young stage where we're at now to going forward where it's going to be mass adoption, right? So that's very high level, big picture in terms of the particular product itself. We have the first product called Alpha Homora, which I can go a bit later into detail as well. The second product that we are building is called Alpha X. It's a very different area from Alpha Homora. We're disrupting what we call the derivatives perpetual swaps area. So that's for Alpha X. And then the third thing that we just launched is Alpha Launchpad, which is actually not a DeFi protocol, but an incubator program to make sure that we as the Alpha Finance Lab can scale very fast while making sure that we bring value to other projects too. So yeah, a lot of things that we can talk about. So happy to share more.
Excellent. Nice to hear all these views, but maybe Tascha, please also directly jump into the products you are offering. I think it's very important. DeFi is a wide space. It's growing tremendously month by month. We have like tons of startups worldwide in this space with all kinds of innovative products. So therefore, I think at this point of time of our discussion, it does make sense that you would add a little bit of detail what the products are, such that we are getting a little bit of an insight from which perspective you are coming.
Yeah, sure. So Alpha Homora itself is the first leverage yield farming product. So before Alpha Homora, there's no such concept as leverage yield farming. We came up with that concept and that segment of DeFi ourselves, right? So that's the market gap that I was talking about in terms of how we see the market and build the product that capture the market gap. And as the product itself, what we serve, or what the product particular serve, are two groups of users, right? One is the lenders, and these will continue to grow as DeFi grows because they're going to be more capital flowing into DeFi, more capital to lend, right? And at the moment, Alpha Homora generates the highest lending interest rate for all the assets that we support, period, right? So that means if you have any of the assets that we support, then the highest place that generate the yield would be Alpha Homura. And that's because we have innovated on the borrowing side, making sure that there is a mechanism that allows for these borrowers to generate high yields for the lenders, right? And on the borrower side, that's where leverage farming comes in. So yeah, that's the more details on the product side of things on Alpha Homura.
Excellent. Very good. And can you add a little bit of more details? Who is basically the key user of this product at this point of time? Is it DeFi experts investing and trading on the entire globe? Is it banks? Is it asset managers? Is it professional investors? Can you add a little bit of more detail? Who is primarily using your product at this point of time? Who is basically sending you emails asking, hi, Tascha, how does this work? Can I invest? And so on. Who are the lead customers or the customers at this early point in time?
Yeah. I would say you can break down, into 3 groups, right? But they're all in DeFi already. So that's, I think, the natural way to attain the users, right? The first group are the other protocols in DeFi. So this would be more of like B2B lending. There are many other yield aggregators protocol that deploy capital to Alpha Homura because we generate the highest yields. So that's the first group. The second group would be the heavy DeFi users. So, these are those who have, a lot of capital to deploy. They're individuals like us, but have been in DeFi for a long time. And then the third group are more of, the retail DeFi users.
Okay, excellent. Do you think this group or segmentation of customers will change? Is there some institutional interest arising? Well, I know that institutionals at this point of time are largely staying outside of DeFi for various reasons. But over here in Germany and especially in Switzerland, we see that this is slowly changing. Interest is huge, but action is not following this interest yet. Can you confirm this, or is this different with your company or your protocol?
Yeah, so I would say there are interest from institutions definitely from multiple angles, right? There are a lot of institutions from VC firms to trading firms that we have talked to and also are interested in deploying capital to Alpha Homura, or even work with us on Alpha Launchpad. So I think there are multiple angles of how they can work with Alpha Finance Lab, given that we have so many moving pieces and we just don't have one protocol, right? And I think that's the first part. The second part is more on the fact that they will take the lead to actually deploy a large amount of capital, right? I think that's where we actually see the difference of the inflow of money as opposed to trying a little bit out from the institutional side of things. And I think for them to take that lead is probably when they have been educated a lot enough on DeFi, actually use DeFi products and see for themselves, how these protocols actually generate a lot of yields.
Excellent. Very interesting. Okay, and such that we are getting this very, very clear, can you once again highlight the main competitive advantage, the differentiation of your product offerings in comparison to others? What exactly is it once again, such that we are very crystal clear on where are you better than other protocols out there?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question and also hard to answer as well because Alpha has so many moving pieces, right? So let me break down into 2 parts. One part is more on the Alpha Finance Lab as the overall, and then the later part is going to be more on the protocol itself, right? So Alpha Finance Lab, given that we're a DeFi lab, I think our key strength is really to understand the DeFi landscape and really find that market gap, allowing us to create new segment in DeFi and pretty much lead in that segment. So I think that's the cream of Alpha Finance Lab and something that cannot be duplicated or copied over as well. So that's on the high level, which also translate to the differentiators that we get from the protocols or the products itself, right? So if you look into Alpha Homura, which is on Ethereum, we generate the highest lending interest rate for all the assets that we support. So I think that's already the key differentiator on the lending side of things. For leverage farming side of things, we are the first and the only protocol on Ethereum that also provide leverage farming service. Yeah, and the same mindset applies to Alpha X as well. We're disrupting the derivatives market in the mindset that we have disrupted the lending and the leverage farming space.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and what about DeFi in general? The current total value locked has crossed, earlier this year 100 billion, and at peak we have been at 5% of the total market cap, which at that point of time was 2 trillion. That was a couple of weeks ago, right? So how do you see the evolution of total value locked from here? Is it going, like in a shaky way upwards? Is it going like straight upwards? What's your impression here? And what could be an upper boundary which we could achieve maybe this year, maybe next year?
Mm-hmm. I wish I could give you that specific number, but I think it relies on multiple angles, right? If you look at TVL itself or total value locked, it pretty much based on the token prices as well. So if we assume that token prices remain constant and just look at the number of tokens that are actually locked on these protocols, I think it will just continue to grow. The difference will be more on the pace of growth, right? So I think where we are now is going to be more of slowly gliding up in terms of the pace of growth. And what will really unlock and push it up to the steep growth, I think there can be two main things, right? One is a lot of building blocks kind of leverage off each other and making sure that, the end users also benefit from that building blocks and all the protocols in the whole pipeline also benefit. And I think that can also be one way to drive for that TVL. The second way is, I think, something you touched upon earlier as well, is the institutional side of things, right? So I think now we're at the stage where institutions are getting excited, getting interested. Some or many have not deployed capital. Even if they deploy, they would deploy a little bit, right, to test the waters. And then once they gain more confidence, once they really understand how smart contract works, smart contract risk and all those things, that's when they are more comfortable to deploy a larger capital. And I think that's where we will see a huge jump in TVL. So I think it's just a matter of time, right, where we get the adoption from institutions. And these can come from so many ways, from actually adopting the protocols, from, let's say, working with us on Alpha Launchpad and getting educated through there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I would also partly agree that on the one hand side, it could be crypto people, crypto natives who now twist towards DeFi. I think there is quite some diffusion to be gotten from this side, and then from the institutional side as well. But I would like to dig a little bit more deeper in here because I'm now working on behalf of the university since a couple of years, and I have tried to educate financial intermediaries, banks, and professional investors over here in Germany and in Switzerland. And I have done so for 4 years. And at the end of the day, my conclusion is it does not work. You have all kinds of reasons why they cannot invest, do not want to invest. The regulatory stuff, knowledge is missing, custody tech is missing, whatever, I perfectly agree. And I think we are having the same opinion here that this will change at some point of time. But, look, 2 years ago, we anticipated that at some point of time, institutionals should come, right? That was 2 years ago. And now institutionals did not come, right? We have here and there some institutionals who did come, yes, but the breadth of institutionals is, in my personal opinion, still staying outside. And I still feel that this might be exactly the same case for the next maybe 1 year, because the speed of adoption, when you really talk to people, is still extremely slow. And I also know the papers and the surveys out there who are claiming that you have an institutional adoption happening. But if you really dig deep and if you really talk to people, then people are still in the mode of, like compiling some information, trying to understand what's going on here. Or in other words, they are still far, far, far away from investing. That's Europe, by the way. It might be the case that Asia is more ahead here. It would be interesting to know this. But from the institutional adoption, I'm waiting for this now since 2 years. Not much has happened. And I still see, with my German perspective, that not too much will happen in the next, say, 6 months or 12 months, right? What is your impression here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think definitely institution itself is a broad category, right? From banks to companies to like trading firms to VC funds. And I think with every year as people try to, onboard these institutional firms, definitely majority of those, you can think of it as a cycle, right? as the cycle turns, more institutions are getting excited. Majority of those will not deploy any capital because it definitely takes courage to actually do something different. So I think it's normal. But with each cycle, there will be some institutions who actually take the leap, and they will definitely make that gains. They will pretty much be the ones to spread the word to more institutions, and I think that's what we're seeing now. There are more firms, traditional corporates, more VC funds, more trading firms who were in traditional finance before and now jumping in to crypto, to DeFi from the other firms or their friends who are actually jumping in a year ago, 2 years ago. So I think we're going to see like multiple cycles of those before we actually reach like banks to adopt, right? I think there are multiple areas from regulatory things that they would have to take into account. So I can understand why that would take a bit longer time for banks.
Okay, I would agree. It will, and I think you're absolutely right. Institutional investors is a huge area. I know it goes from incorporate private investors who can be said to be a little bit of institutional family offices, then large scale pension funds and so on. You have the entire press. But I think it's interesting to see that we are agreeing here that because this would indicate that basically all institutionals on a worldwide level, more or less, are the same way, basically investigating all this, but at this point of time, largely staying outside. But this is not necessarily bad, because at the end of the day, it allows us to really believe in a huge upside, because the prices here and there are already high of crypto tokens, Bitcoin, and so on. And they and institutionals are still staying outside, right? So what happens now if they join? Then we can assume that this entire sector is growing strongly, and we could then conclude that some kind of hype wave growth should happen in the upcoming years, maybe even more so than in the last 1 or 2 years. Would you agree with this view?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the landscape 2 years ago is very different from now, right? I think there are real usages now from DeFi, from NFT, gaming, which we don't see that 2 years ago. So I think the landscape and perception 2 years ago is a bit more of they're going to be on the sideline and just study the space, get educated on it. But I think now we're at a stage where those who have studied about it definitely gonna take a step, right? And at the moment now, there are going to be a large group that are getting a lot more excited with all these new use cases, and pretty much once you understand how it works, and then once they're ready, then they would take the leap. So I think it's just a matter of time, but what we really have now is more of real use cases on blockchain.
I perfectly agree. It's just a matter of time, and I think at the end of the day, we are all on the same opinion here. We just would have to discuss, is this happening in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and so on. But we should also reflect on what happened in the past, right? We had like a tremendous growth of companies, people, and total value locked in the last 1.5 years. This is really amazing. Like, just imagine what happened 1 year ago. That's where we had let's call it a food summer with all the sushi tokens and all this stuff going on. That was crazy. And since then, a lot has happened, a lot has professionalized. People are also now able to sort out good projects versus bad projects, right? This knowledge is also being created and so on. So what is the status of your company at this point of time? What is the status of Alpha X? What features have you been developing in the past? What features do you have on your roadmap for the future?
Yeah, so at Alpha, mentioned briefly before, right, that we have Alpha Homura, Alpha X, Alpha Launchpad. Alpha Homura has been live for many months. The first version was live since October last year. The second version is live since May of this year, and we're continuing to grow and expand on Alpha Homura front through integrations, through partners, so expanding to other chains, layer 2. So that's on Alpha Homura, right? For Alpha X, this is very very interesting, and where it gets we get to repeat what we have done with Alpha Homura with Alpha X in a sense that we're rethinking how derivatives should work in DeFi, because it's definitely easy to just copy or mimic what is on centralized exchange, or what is what we have in traditional finance to be on DeFi, right? But is that the way to go for DeFi? Like, is that how users think and want, right? So I think we're having to put the hat of DeFi users on and then see what does it take to build to make sure that derivatives in DeFi is as huge as how we see it now in centralized exchange, right? So once we go to the drawing board, we pretty much see that, hey, there is, the key missing piece in derivatives now on DeFi, is that a lot of the protocols are focusing more on servicing and targeting the experienced traders, right? Maybe they're experienced in perpetual swaps, maybe they're experienced in leveraged tokens, but I would say that is still a small portion for the whole, large community of DeFi. And what is really missing, allowing derivatives on chain to grow as large as derivatives on centralized exchange, is making sure that we think outside the box and create a version of derivatives that actually work in DeFi. So that's how we're thinking with AlphaX. I cannot share too much in terms of how the mechanics work, as we're saving that for future announcements. But in terms of the status-wise on AlphaX, we have finished developing the smart contract. The first audit via consensus has been completed. It's going through another round of audit in a few weeks, and we're actively building AlphaX continuously.
Okay, excellent. Can you add more details on the Alpha Launchpad? How does this work? How do you view the incubation process of launching a project on your Launchpad? Can you, is it, if possible, right? Is it possible to add a little bit of more details here?
Yeah, sure. So, before I jump into the whole process of how we help, I think have to come to the idea of why we created it first, right? Because I think that's the real value that we're bringing to all the Alpha token holders and stakers. So pretty much how we think of it is, the question becomes, how can we scale Alpha Finance Lab to be the most scalable DeFi lab? And what that means is we have all the know-how, right? And these know-how are being applied to build Alpha products. But what if this know-how can be applied to help mentor and advise other incubator projects? And in turn, these incubator projects give a portion of their token and distribute it to Alpha stakers. So there's actually, no difference than, let's say we build our Alpha products, we collect protocol fees, we distribute those protocol fees to Alpha stakers, right? So Alpha Launchpad is actually a vehicle allowing us to multiply that value accrual to Alpha stakers by making sure that we continue to build actively on Alpha products without having to build too many products, right? So that's the main idea. And what the incubated projects will get will be from all types of support. We make sure to not only support from the product and technical side of things, but also on the non-tech, like how do you adjust the narrative, marketing side of things, launch strategy. So all the things that you need to make sure that your DeFi project launch and grow successfully. So that's the whole idea of Alpha Launchpad, and we have a very thorough and high standard for evaluating the projects, and we're pushing for the quality as opposed to the quantity.
Okay, excellent. And so how are you investing the resources at your company, between the core protocol and working on the Launchpad? What is the importance of each domain here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good question. And actually they don't require the same resources at all. So for development side of things and the development team, right, they focus on building Alpha products. And we continue to think and innovate on the product side of things. But then at the same time, we also have Alpha Launchpad team, including me, Nipun, and a few more people that we're onboarding from the DeFi community themselves to make sure that we are able to give advice and mentor to the incubator projects. And what, the type of work that we work with incubator project is more on advising, mentoring, brainstorming, as opposed to coding and developing, right? So there are two different sides of resources being deployed.
Okay. And do you have any first projects which you can, present if possible, which will come on the Launchpad, or where people are contacting you and saying, hey, Tascha, can we please talk as soon as possible? We would like to leverage your Launchpad. Is this already happening, or is it too early?
Yeah, this is already happening. For any projects that are interested, they can also check out the Launchpad website, which is launchpad.alphafinance.io. There have been a number of projects who have applied. We have screened quite heavily and actually have a selected few that are launching with us. The first project that has announced is called Beta Finance, and Beta is actually shortened from volatility. their product itself is to offset volatility with a function of short selling. So that's one quick blurb about beta finance, and there are a few more projects that we have also passed the criteria, and that should be coming out in a few months as well.
Okay, excellent. Very interesting. So what are the future plans for Alpha? Is it focusing on the core protocol, focusing on the Launchpad? Is it, I don't know, maybe even education, because with education, you're getting more projects on the protocol. What's your goals here for future plans?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think there are two main things, right? One is definitely, or three main things. One is for the products that we have already, we are going to continue to expand from institutional side of things, onboarding them, to expanding cross-chain, adding features, adding partners. And then second side is the new Alpha product. So let's say we're working on the new Alpha X right now. Once it's launched, we're going to continue to think what are more innovative products that we can build. And then the third angle is on the Alpha Launchpad, which we continue to find and incubate great quality projects.
Excellent, very nice. So how do you see basically so you are deeply wired into the DeFi ecosystem, right? So where do you see on a worldwide level the hottest spots? Is it in Asia? Is it in Europe? Is it in the US? Where do you see the most activity, or alternatively speaking, where are your people working from? Are they all coming from your city or from your country? Are they sitting all over the globe distributed? So where are the DeFi hotspots at this point of time? From my perspective, it feels so distributed that I can't really tell you what are the hot cities to reside in as a DeFi hotspot, because it's so distributed. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I would say there are multiple small hotspots globally, but the large one I would say still in the Bay Area and in the US in general, right? There are a lot of heavy DeFi users in the US. There are a large community of DeFi, Ethereum as well in the US. But in terms of our project itself, we don't focus on any particular geography per se. It's a global product day one. But majority of our team are in Thailand, but we also have different team members in Singapore, in the US as well. So we're recruiting globally too.
Okay, interesting. Which other countries are important in DeFi from Asia? Is it, as you said, Singapore, Thailand, any other? Where is India? From our European perspective, India is said to be the IT workbench of the entire world. But on the DeFi map, companies or protocols from India are not so often occurring, right?
I would say in Asia, I think Singapore, a bit of Hong Kong, a bit of India are the main geographic areas in terms of where projects lie.
Interesting. Excellent. So thanks very much. It was very interesting. I hope the audience also liked these insights into the Alpha Finance project. Thanks also from my side that I could have been interviewing you here, talking to you. And yeah, have a nice day, everybody. And let's move on to the next session.
Thank you, Dr. Philipp.